Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to start working on our first lab assignment for the course. If you hear any banging noises in the background, my neighbors are putting on a new roof at the time of me recording this, so that's what that is. So hopefully it won't be too loud and annoying while we go through this. But I'm just going to start off here with the PDF file that I've put into the course contents. So if you look at the course contents for week 2, you should see this PDF file that I put in there called Revit Family Creation, a Step-by-Step Introduction. So this is about a 40-page document, but it's basically just a step-by-step thing that we're going to be going through, and I'm just going to be doing it here in this video. I might actually separate this into a few videos depending on how long it is. Maybe once I get to the end of one of the sections, I'll cut it off and then start another video just to break it up and make it a little bit easier to follow. But on your end, if you want to follow this guide or you just want to try to follow this video that I'm putting together, you can do that as well. Here at the start of this PDF document, when you open this, make sure you go through and you read all this information, because it does a really good job of explaining a lot of the concepts that I tried to cover in the lecture that I put out last week that covers the Revit Family Editor. Just a lot of it is really good review, and it goes into a lot of really good specific detail. But yeah, this first stuff, like the first 10 or so pages, make sure that you're reading that, because I actually am going to be pulling some content from this for the quiz that we'll be taking for this module. So definitely read through this, and also if you have to go back and review the lecture that I put out in week 1, do that as well, because that in combination with the content that is here in this document is what I'm going to be using for the quiz questions. All right, so what is this project that we're going to be doing together? Well, it's going to be this really awesome little display unit. All right, so basically if you're going to a store, they have their racks where they're displaying all the products. Basically that's what this is. This is a really good project to do because if you look at this little sketch that's here, there's a lot of different components to this, and if we want to make something that's fully parametric, meaning we can control it with those parameters that we set up, this is a really good one to do that, and it's going to give you a really good idea of how you go in and build these complex families and get them working properly. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but this guide is pretty good, and it should help us get through this relatively easily. So again, if you just want to go on your own and try to follow this guide, you can, or you can go ahead and watch this video, and I'm just going to go through this on my own step by step. Not sure how long this video is going to be, how long it's going to take me to get through everything, but I'm just going to go through it, and I'm going to try to explain some things as I go, and you can just follow along with me and do the same thing and try to replicate everything that I am doing. So like I said, a lot of this stuff is reviewed from things I've already talked about. Something I've not talked about yet is what are called nested families, and that's going to be a big key aspect of this assignment. So what a nested family is basically a family within a family. If you've ever seen the movie Inception, it's kind of like that, where you have a dream within a dream. Okay, but basically what nested families allow us to do is introduce more flexibility into the complex families that we'll be building. I'll explain those a little bit more as we go. It might make a little bit more sense, but basically it's almost impossible to get a family like this working properly if we're not breaking it apart into separate families and sort of nesting them into one another. It just becomes a mess if you don't. So we're going to be covering that. So I guess without further ado, we'll get started with the actual assignment here. I'm going to switch over to my Revit screen really quickly. All right, so here I am within Revit, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to open a model file. So there's going to be a file provided that I've uploaded to the Canvas page within week 2 that you can download. So that's what we're going to be opening right now. So let me just navigate to where I have that saved on my computer. So it's going to be this file here that says 100sandbox.rvt. Go ahead and open up that file. Should take a minute to update. All right, and then the file is open. So basically what this file is, this is just a Revit project file. There's not really much in here. See, I might actually just hide this roof and maybe the ceiling so I can see it sort of in an axon view. But as you can see, it's just like a basic like store layout, and there's not really anything in here. And this is just our test file so that as we were building the family, if we want to test things out, we can load it into here and kind of see how everything is working. But after we get that loaded up, we're actually going to get started building the actual family itself. So the next step in the process, we're going to go up here to File, we're going to go to New, and then we're going to create a new family. We're going to see our select family template file, select a family template file dialog up here. This is what it should look like on your end. Whenever it loads up, you should have all these different family templates. And we're going to select the generic model family template. So that one right there. All right, so once we have that open, let's go ahead and just save this. File, save as family. And then we're just going to call this box. Click save. All right. Now, on our reference or our create tab, we want to start out by creating our reference planes. So I covered reference planes in the previous lecture, but basically these are just what we use to sort of create our framework for all of our parameters in our geometry. All right, so we're going to start out here by making a reference plane. We're going to draw one over here on the left side, straight down. If you recall from my lecture, you don't really have to place these in any specific location. Just make sure it's going from quadrant to quadrant, and then we're going to select it, and we're going to click on the little name here, and we're going to name that left, like so. All right, then we're going to do a horizontal line below that. And let me see here. We're going to call that our front. And then we're just going to mirror these across the middle. So let's select the left one first. And then after that's selected, let's make this 3 foot as our dimension. And then select the bottom one and make that 2 feet. And then we'll go ahead and mirror these. So select the reference plane and then click on the mirror button. Click on the axis here. Then we're going to click on the name and we're going to call this right. And then we're going to click on the bottom one, do the same thing. And we're going to name this one to back, like so. Okay, the next step then is to start adding in our parameters for our dimensions. So what we're going to do is go here to the Annotate tab, and we are going to add in some align dimensions. So we're going to do one from the left to the middle to the right, and then we're going to drag over here off to the right, and we are going to just end it up here somewhere. Click one more time, and then we're going to click on the EQ to establish equality so that everything flexes from the center evenly. Then we're going to do the same thing on the left side here. So bottom, middle, top, drag out here, click EQ. Then we're going to add in a dimension from left to right like this, drag up and then click. And then we're going to do one here from front to back, drag out to the left, and then click once to finish that. Then what we're going to do is actually add in our parameters. So let me look here where those are being put. Okay, so we're going to make this one our width parameter, and we're going to make this an instance. So what we need to do is select this dimension, and then we're going to go up here to create parameter. We're going to call this one width, and then we're going to select instance right there, and then we're going to click on OK. And then this one over here on the left, we're going to call this one depth. And we're also going to make that an instance parameter, and we're going to click OK. So then after we do that, we want to do what's called flexing. So this is where we're going to test to make sure that everything is moving correctly when we change the dimensions. So we can go up here to the family types button, bring this up, and then we are going to just change these values to something else. So like 3 foot, click apply. You can see that flexed correctly. And then we'll make this one like 5 feet, click apply, and that one also went correctly. So then we're just going to reset these back to what they were. So we'll go to 6 foot and then 4 foot, like so, click apply, and then OK. Okay, now what we're going to do is switch over to our front view to add in a height parameter. So go ahead and toggle the front under elevations. And we're going to create another reference plane. So go back to your create tab, click on reference plane, and then we're just going to draw one from left to right, like so. And we're going to click on it. We're going to set the dimension here to be 3 feet. And we're going to click on the name, and we're going to set this to be top. All right, so the next thing then, again, is to add in our dimension. So we're going to click on Annotate and then choose Aligned. Then I'm going to hover over the bottom line here, and then I want to hit my Tab key because I don't want to select this reference level. I want to select this green dashed reference plane that's underneath of it. So we're going to click on that. Then we're going to click on the top reference plane, drag to the left, click one more time. And then this one, we're going to select, go up here again to our create parameter button and call this height. Set it to be an instance as well, click OK. And then you can see we have height 3 feet. We're going to flex it again, so go back up here, click on the height, set that to something else like 4 feet, click apply. It should just move vertically 1 foot like it does. Then we're going to set that back to 3 foot, and then click apply, reset it, and we should be good to go. All right, so after we have all of our sort of reference plane framework set up, the next thing is to actually add in the geometry. So we're going to toggle back to our reference level view. And a little shortcut to do this, you might have seen me do this in the past, but if you hold the control key and then click on the tab key, you can see up here at the top it's going to cycle through all of your open views. and that is just a nice little easy way to switch between all of them. So I'm back in my reference level floor plan sort of view. So what we're going to do is go back to the Create tab, and we're going to create a new extrusion. So go ahead and click on that, and then we're basically just going to lock all of these lines to our sort of framework that we've set up. So I'm going to choose the rectangle option, and I'm going to click here at this top left intersection and then drag down to the bottom right intersection. Then I'm going to go around and toggle on all of these lock icons to make sure that they are actually tied to the reference planes. Once that's done, go ahead and click the green check mark, and then we're going to switch back to our front view, and we're going to align the top of this box to the top of the top reference plane. So using our align tool, we're going to click on the reference plane, and then we're going to hover over the top of the extrusion, and we're going to click the lock icon. All right, so then what we can do for just further verification, I'm going to switch to a default 3D view, and I am going to flex everything again. So we're just going to change all of these values and make sure everything moves. So let's go 3 feet on that. That looks good. Let's go 4 foot, 2 foot on that. That looks good. And we'll go 5 foot on that. And that looks good as well. So then we'll just reset them. Okay, cool. All right, so everything is looking good. At this point, we can load this into the project and actually test it out within the project. So I guess let's go ahead and try that. We're going to click load into project. And then you can see it snaps to my cursor, and I can place this around inside the project here. And then if I switch back to my 3D view for the project, you can see there's my 2 little boxes that I made. If I click on those, I get the dimensions here, and I can change them here as well, and they should work correctly inside the project. 4 foot and 3 foot. Let's try that. There we go. You can see I have a little cube shape now, as opposed to the one over here that stayed the original dimensions. And that's again because we used instance parameters. Those let us control each instance of the box as they're placed individually. So by changing the dimensions on one, we're not modifying the dimensions of all of them as we would be with a type parameter. All right, so we can see that they work. So we're going to go back to our family file. And I'm just going to save this now, so I'm going to click Control S just to save it. And then I'm going to close some of my inactive views just to clean this up a little bit. So if you click this button here, it's going to collapse everything except one view from each individual file that's open. So now I have one view within my box file, family file, and then I have the 3D view from my project file. All right, so next step, we're going to go up here to File, and then we're going to go to Save As, Family, and we're going to rename this. We're going to make a copy of this basically, and we're going to call this one Shelf. And click on Save. All right, now let's go to the front elevation view. And we're going to have to put in a new reference plane. So let's see here. So below the reference level, we're going to create a new reference plane. And we're going to make it about 4 inches away from the bottom of the reference level. So I'm going to draw it down here below reference level, and I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to name it underside. All right, then I'm going to click on my extrusion, and then up here I want to go to edit work plane, and I'm going to switch my active work plane to be that new reference plane that I just created. So you want to click here to specify a new work plane, and as you can see, basically this extrusion that we made is tied to that reference level line, which is running right here at the bottom, and we're going to make it so that the bottom of it is now tied to that new reference plane that we just created below it. So we're going to click this drop down, and we're going to select the underside and then click on OK. And as you can see, when I did that, it moved the bottom of that box down to that new reference plane that we made and locked it to it. So now I'm just going to click on that reference plane, and I'm going to set this dimension to be the 4 inches that they specify in the instructions. So there we go. There's our 4 inches. Okay. Next, we need to select our actual box, and we're going to click on this grip, and we're going to drag this down, and we're going to snap it to the reference level, and it's going to create an error. And the reason it's doing that is because we're kind of breaking the relationship that we had already established. So remember how we aligned this to that reference plane here and we created that height dimension? Well, since it was locked to that and we grabbed that grip and drug it down, it kind of broke that sort of lock that we put in place, or it's a constraint basically. And so we can see we get this error that says constraints are not satisfied, but that's okay because that's what we're trying to do here anyway. So if we go ahead and we click on the remove constraints button, it's basically going to unlock that for us. If we just hit cancel, it would undo everything. But if I hit remove constraints, it's just going to break that relationship and it's going to put it here instead. So now what I need to do is just hit this lock button, and we're going to lock it to this reference plane instead. So then what we're going to do is we're going to modify our height parameter that we put in, and we're going to actually lock this to here instead. Okay, so what I'm going to do that is just select the dimension, and then I'm going to click on this point here, and I'm going to drag that. Actually, it might be this one here. Yeah. Click on this point here and then drag that down and then hover over our bottom reference plane. And then when it gets there, we're going to click on the lock icon. Actually, no, don't click on the lock icon. Just leave it unlocked. After we do that, select it and go up here to label and switch this to be our height. Okay. And when we do that, you can see it updates so that the height is locked to that bottom reference plane instead, and everything moves down instead of up. All right. All right, so basically if you're following along in the PDF, we are now on page 19, where it's saying everything is going to be flexing in the negative direction, so that's correct. So what we want to do is go up here now to the family types, and we want to set the width to be 4 feet. We're going to set the depth to be 1 foot 4 feet, or 4 inches, I'm sorry. And the height is going to be 3/4 of an inch. Like so. Then we're going to click apply, and as you can see, everything moved correctly and it gave me no errors, so I know that I did it right. Okay, then we're just going to click OK, and we are going to save the project. So you can click on the save button or hit Control S to do that. Okay, and that's going to end section 102 in the instructions. So now we're moving on to section 103. Family editor, solids and voids. So we're going to be creating a bracket now that's going to sort of support the shelf on the actual shelving unit. So let's go up here to File, and then Save As, Family, and then we're gonna call this bracket. All right. So we're basically using the same family for every step that we're going through, but we're saving copies as we go, and we're just going to modify them to be a different object as we're going forward. So let's save that as bracket. All right, now we're going to select the underside reference plane that we made, and we're going to rename it to be bottom. Then we're going to make sure that is still selected, and we're going to click on our height dimension. And then over here, we're going to set the value. So you want to click on the actual name here where it says height 3/4 of an inch. Set this to be 1 foot, 0 inches. That's going to flex this, and it's going to move it downward so that our box is now 1 foot tall in the negative direction. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to add in another reference plane here. So we're going to go back to our Create tab. We're going to go to Reference Plane, and we're just going to add a reference plane between the reference level and our bottom reference plane, so somewhere in here, like that. And we want to make sure that this one is 3/4 of an inch lower than the reference level. So I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to zoom in, and we get this temporary dimension in blue. I'm going to click on the text here, and I'm going to set that to be 3/4 of an inch. All right, that's going to move that upward where I want it to be. Then we're going to add a dimension between this and the reference level. So we're going to go up to Annotate, Aligned. We're going to click on the reference level here, and then we're going to click on the reference plane. And we're just going to, let's just drag it over here to the left and click there to create that. And then this we're going to actually lock into place. So with everything still selected, just hit this lock button, and that's going to make it so that this reference plane is fixed in place and we can't move it. If I try to move it, it's going to make an error. So you can see we get that constraints are not satisfied. So we're not going to be tying a parameter to this. We're just going to be creating this constraint and leaving it like that. All right, so that was step 5 underneath of the section 103. So now we're moving on to step 6. So here we're going to open our family types dialog. So we're going to go up here, and then we're going to select the width parameter, and we're going to change the name of it to thickness. So once that is selected, make sure that this is highlighted black like it is on my screen. Going to click on this pencil, and we're going to change the name of this now to thickness. And then we're going to click OK. And then we're going to click Apply, and then OK. And then we're going to click on the extrusion itself right here, and we're going to delete that out. So get rid of that, and then we're going to save the file. Okay. So now we're on to page 21. This is create a new blend. So this is where we're going to add in some new geometry to actually create the bracket shape. So we want to make sure we are in our front view. Yep, I'm in my front view. And on the Create tab, we're going to go to Work Plane, and we're going to Set. Okay, so this button right here. And we want to make sure that this work plane is set to the back reference plane. So right there, we're going to click on back, and then we're going to click on OK. So what this is doing basically is by setting your work plane, that's basically telling Revit to align the geometry that you're making with that reference plane. So if we go back here really quickly to our top view, remember how we made this back reference plane? So as you'll see, as we are working in our front elevation view, since we set our active reference plane to be this back plane that we made here, everything is going to, with the new geometry that we're making, it's going to be snapped to this plane, and it's going to be drawn outward, forward from there. Okay. So we're going to go back to the front, and then we're going to click on the blend tool on the create tab. So go here and then click on blend. What a blend is it basically lets you take two different profiles. As you can see in their little example here, they're doing a hexagon and a circle, and it's going to basically loft the two together. If you've used the loft tool in Rhino before, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just going to make geometry from two different profiles, and they can be any two profiles. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be as crazy as a hexagon and a circle. I think what we're going to be doing is two different size square profiles and then blending them. So we're going to click on blend, and then we're going to select the rectangle shape, and then we're going to draw this on the opposite corners of the rectangle. So let's see here. I'm just trying to figure out where they're putting these lines at. Got to zoom in a little bit closer on my instructions. Okay, so basically what we're doing now is we're drawing our first profile for the blend. So the first profile is going to be, so if you look here, this top left intersection down to this bottom right intersection here. Okay, so that is going to be the base profile. Then we have to switch over to the top profile. So that is going to be done by clicking this button here, edit top. This lets us do the second profile. So now you can see I have these black lines here, and that's just showing me where my base is. So now I got to click rectangle again, and we're going to do the top from here to here. All right, and we actually need to lock all these, so I forgot to do that on the other one. But go ahead and click on all these locks. There should be 4 of them. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So those should all be locked. Then I'm going to go back to the base really quick, and I'm just going to use my align tool now to do this. So align, click on the left side, click on the left pink line, lock it. I'm going to toggle to this reference plane here, click that, and then hover over this till I get that sketch line reference. Click on that and then lock it. And then I'm going to lock this one over here, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So that should all be correct now. Okay, after we've done that, I think we're good, and then we can click on the green check mark to finish. And then I'm just going to switch back to the reference level to make sure that I was right in what I was saying earlier. So yeah, as you can see, here's our back reference plane, and since we had switched our work plane to that back plane, you can see when we drew it in the front view, it locked the base profile to that back plane. And then if I switch over to a 3D view, you're going to get a good idea of what we just created. So as you can see, we sort of have this like triangular extrusion shape. And what we made was, first we made the profile for the back, which was this kind of rectangle shape. And then the second profile we drew was the smaller rectangle shape, and then it just lofted between the two of them like that. All right. So now what we're going to do is switch to the left elevation view. And then we're going to want to snap the front of this the front profile here. We're going to snap that to this line here in the front. So if we click on that and then we drag the grip over till we hit that reference plane and then release, you can click on the lock icon that appears, and that will then lock it to our front reference plane. So now we'll be able to flex this correctly. So now I'm down here on flex the blend within the instructions. So we're going to go up here to, actually let's switch to a 3D view so we can see it a little bit better. I'm going to switch my view to be shaded. So click that button down there and then choose shaded, and then that's what it looks like in the instructions. And then we're going to open up our family types dialog. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the dimensions of this and make sure that it looks correct. So thickness here is set to 4 foot right now. We're going to switch this to be 1/4 of an inch. So 1/4 inch. Click apply, and we get it down to 1/4 inch, which is correct. Next, we're going to switch the height, and we're going to set this to be 4 inches. Okay. And that looks correct. Then we're just going to click OK, and we can kind of zoom around here. And if you compare yours to the image that is shown on page 22, it should look like this, okay? Next, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to save the file. And then we're now going to go on to the part that says add a void form. So we're going to be putting a hole through the middle of this bracket. So let's go ahead and open the left elevation view. And then we're going to go to the Create tab. And then underneath our forms, so everything we've been creating so far has been a solid form. So we're just making solid geometry. But if we want to actually punch a hole through something, we need to use what's called a void form to do that. So a void is just the opposite of a solid. So if you hover over and you look at the explanation, you can see that basically that orange box that they drew on top of that solid box, that's your void form. And when you confirm the void form, it's going to create what you see on the right side, where it actually hollows that portion of the geometry out. So that's how you create complex geometry in Revit. You use void forms. So we're going to click on that, go down to the drop down, and we're going to be doing a void extrusion. So then what we're going to do is be creating a circle basically right in this area here. So we're going to make this a 1 1/4 radius. So I'm going to click on circle, and then I'm just going to start my circle inside the space here on the bracket, and I want to make sure that my radius is 1 1/4 inches. So we're going to type 1.25 inches, hit enter, and then that's going to make our circle. Then I'm going to click exit a couple times, select the circle, and go over here to the left where it says center mark visible, and toggle that on, and then click apply. And that gives me my crosshairs so that I can align this properly. So then what we need to do is create a couple dimensions to get this in the right location. So we're going to go up here to annotate aligned. Then we're going to click on our reference plane. So hit tab and select the reference plane here at the top. Click that, and then click on the crosshairs here. Drag your dimension to the left. Click again to finish it. And then we're going to make sure this dimension is set to be 1 3/4 inches. So if we click on our circle now and then go over here to the left where it says edit dimension length, we can click on that number and we can set that to 1.75 inches. And that should be in the right spot now. Then we have to do the same thing from left to right. So we're going to click on annotate again, aligned, put a dimension from the left reference plane to the crosshair, drag down, click, and then we're going to set this one to be 2 inches. So click on your circle, come down here to the text on the dimension and then set that to 2 inches. All right, and that should be good. After we've done that, let's go ahead and click on the green check mark to finish edit mode. And now if we toggle back to a 3D view, you should see that we have a little bit of a cutout, but it's not perfect yet. So if I go on this side, you can see that my my void extrusion, if I hover over it, you get the outline of the void. And it's starting to go through the bracket, but it's not going through all the way. So they're going to show you how to do this in a slightly different way, but the way I like to do it is I'm going to click on my void and I'm going to drag that all the way through like that. And then I'm going to, I need to make sure this still works. I'm going to click on the align tool and I'm going to zoom in on one of the faces here. So you can see I have hovered over and gotten the edge of the geometry and it's highlighting the face of that. So I want to click on that face to make it blue. And is it going to let me do it? No. Okay, so we have to do one more step. So what you can do is click on the void extrusion so it highlights like this. Then go to where it says cut and click the down button and then click on uncut geometry, and this is basically going to separate the void from the bracket. So you want to click on the void first, then click on the bracket, and it's going to uncut the two of them, so you basically have your void now in orange. Then what we can do is click on align, click on the face here, and then click on the face of the void extrusion to get them in the same spot, and then click the lock icon to lock it to that face. Then do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to hold your shift key and the middle mouse button to rotate around. Click on the face on this side, click on the void face, and then lock it to that. And then we're going to recut this. So go up here to your modify tab and click on the cut tool. Then click on the void extrusion and then click on the blend, and it's going to remake that hole through there. So now if we were to flex this by going to our family types and then editing the thickness, let's just do like a foot or something like that. You can see that it's still going through correctly all the way and it's locked to those faces. So just click Control Z to undo that. But that's what we're looking for right there. And now we're going to go ahead and save this. So just click on save. And then I think that's going to do it for this video segment. So I'm going to stop the video here and then I'm going to start up with the second part of this assignment, which is then the nesting families portion. So go ahead and get caught up with this, and then when you're ready, start the second video.